Well, good evening, and thank you everyone so much for being here tonight. Tonight's a exciting night, wouldn't you agree? So you can clap for that. Absolutely. Tonight is a celebration, and it's also a chance to learn and to really just take part in this beautiful work that Marty has begun. This is not a finished work. This is a beginning. And I just want to just say thank you all for being here. And I know it's a privilege for me to even get to be up here with you, Marty, as we get to do a book launch. Marty's been just a really great source of friendship, number one, for me over the last couple years. But even more than that, I've got to learn a lot from Marty, from sitting and having coffee and lunches and just hearing and soaking up all of the things that he's learned and willing to share and pass on to me. So, Marty, you've been a really good friend, but you've also been a mentor and a teacher to me, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I'm excited for tonight as we get to learn together, celebrate together, and just enjoy this beautiful book, The Psalms, A Sanctuary for the Soul. So thank you for being here, and I want to turn it over to you,
awesome,
Mr. Marty.
Thank you.
There you go.
I think I've got it. And your preaching it just gets better every time I hear you. It's like, who's teaching this guy? It's awesome. Well, yes, again, thank you. Thank you for being here. It's an interesting thing, ending something that started long ago, and yet it feels like it's just beginning. So we are in the time between the time, or the wood between the worlds. If you're a Lewis fan, you know what I'm talking about. So, welcome to the garden. Imagine yourself in a garden. Can you do that? Yeah. Trees, flowers, smells, the sounds of birds and the bees buzzing around and hoping that they don't get you. The garden is where this whole series lives. In every psalm, I want to take you into the garden. So the nature of sanctuary, we have bird sanctuaries. Gardens are a sanctuary place too. It's a place to process, to be restored, a sanctuary, to be set apart, to be set aside for a particular work. And there's nothing quite like the garden. The Bible begins in a garden, it ends in a garden, and the Song of Solomon the whole thing is a garden as well. And for the Jewish people, it is the Holy of Holies of the Old Testament. So the garden is a place that represents where life is happening, where things are growing. And so this book intends to really not just play on garden as metaphor. I actually want you to envision living in gardens. And the more time you spend in a garden, the more this will make sense to you. So this book actually started some time ago, back in 1998. I was doing a postdoctorate at Regent College in Vancouver. I had just gone through a divorce. And so the nature of my life was fractured, and I was looking for a restorative practice, something to help me to work through what it meant to go through all the things that the Psalms actually want to speak to. What does it mean to be with God in the process of allowing for healing and finding next steps forward, to be taken in ways that do the restorative work that I think is so important. When I was there, I was in Bruce Walke's office, which well, at least one person, Bruce goes to your church. He's still alive. Where is he tonight? In Texas, yes. So I'm glad that you're here and I'm not in Texas. And he's 95. But anyway, Bruce Walke's a professor of Old Testament there, so I was in his office and had access to his books as well. So to say the whole sanctuary, for me, the Psalms were a sanctuary even back then. So to live into that has been part of what it is that I have done. Now, you may or may not know it, but people don't buy poetry books, they tell me. So for a number of years, I attempted to sell just the poems that I wrote, and you'll see in here that I've done a particular thing with poetry in this book, because poetry is one of the arts that I bring into this book. The nature of what it looks like to be creative is creating space for others to even be more creative. So I never want my creativity to be an end, but rather to inspire you to be creative as well. So parts of what I do is to generate in you a creative response to what it is that happens when you're in the Psalms. And I don't know if the angels sing to you in the garden or not. But anyway, to have flute music playing or something that restores the soul. Eugene Peterson was there at Regent when I was there. I asked him to write the foreword to the book that was just the poems, and he said he would if I could find a publisher, which again, back to the problem with poems. And I wrote to his publisher, which was Nav Press, for the message. And they said, we like yours better than his, but you know what? We've already got his. So good luck. So anyway, just to say it's been a long, slow journey that began with all that. Years later, I had a friend who worked at InterVarsity. He said, you know, Marty, you need to give people a whole life experience with this. It's not enough with poetry. Can you create something that would give them a sense of really living into the life that the Psalms represents? So that was my challenge to take off there. And I started working on that. I had another friend who's in Australia who particularly works with youth ministry and doing really wonderful video productions. And so he just started brainstorming with me, and he said, you know, we could do the 5 Psalms as like a 5 CD hit, but the idea of the gardens came up, and it's like, that fits for me. And there's so much, I think, in the Psalms that really engage that. So I began the journey then about 6 years ago, adding all of what has become this. And just about 3 years ago at the American Academy of Religion, somebody came up and said, you know, I've seen some of your other works. You know, do you have anything else you're thinking about? It's like, well, I just happen to have in my hand my proposal for this book on the Psalms. What do you think? He says, my publisher sent me to find somebody writing a series, which usually series are very difficult, and something on relational theology. And I said, well, this is on the Psalms, but it's as relational as you can get. Let's take a look at it. And so within a very short time, he said, this looks great. The publishing company that is the housing for it is Seabury Press, which is the official publishing company for the Episcopalian Church. They hold the copyright for the Book of Common Prayer. So it's not a little passing publishing company, it's an important company. So I'm just looking to make sure I don't forget anything here. Yes, and so this book is also a tour guide. The nature of a tour guide is they take you to the places that are going to be most impactful to give you the best experience of what could go on. And so to say there's 150 Psalms, I'm working on Psalm 55 this morning. I've got a long ways to go. My journey is a long ways ahead of me, is the end. But every time I sit down, I don't come in with any preconceived ideas. I'm in it for the journey. And so I have about 60 books that I read through and attempt to listen to all of them and then to hear, where in the garden is this? How do I begin to see the nature of what's happening in the garden there, beginning to unpack the nature of the emotional sense of the garden, of what's going on, and then to how do I invite people into this in ways that become transformative? So, a tour guide, there's a backside to this one. So, to say that the Psalms at some level are the place that most people go. If there's anywhere that people read in the Bible, they say, I open up in the middle, there's the Psalms. 150 of them, it's hard to miss them in a sense. So to say that it is a place people go because it's a place of prayer, it's called the songbook or the prayer book of the Bible. And why do people want to go there to pray? It's to begin to live into a relationship with God. It's a very relational space. The sense of wrestling with real life. It doesn't just sound like doctrine or philosophical thoughts. It's real life every day, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the high thoughts, and the what about these tears? What about these people that are outside my door who are terrifying me? It's very much in the lived space. So I try to bring that, but I'm also trying to really bring a sense of dialogue in these books that God speaks. One of my other series on theology, Karl Barth, he has the summary of the whole thing, 2 words, Deus Dixit, God speaks. And so I have the Father and the Son and the Spirit showing up throughout these chapters, personally speaking to you and encouraging, accompanying. And so I want there to be a sense of the dialogue of there's something spoken to you and there's also opportunities for response as well. So at this point, I'm going to have Ty go ahead to the next slide. Oh, there it is. No, that was the one. Sorry, back up. There it is. So each of the Psalms, I have 7 different artistic perspectives that I want to invite people into. So to say the nature of art is a reflection on life. And so I've tried to incorporate ways to reflect on life that are all looking at the same thing, but from different perspectives. So surveying the garden, the first section of each chapter, when you open up, and there is an introduction that explains these even more than what I'll be doing right now. It's called Surveying the Garden. So imagine you're sitting on the front bench, front porch, looking out over the garden and getting the basic picture of what's going on. What's the theme of what's happening in the garden today? So that's what the first one is. The second one, Into the Garden with God, the garden there with a capital G. This is viewing the whole of the Bible as the garden, and so every one of the second sections, I relate what's happening in that psalm to other places in the Bible where that theme either occurs or is quoted. So I'm wanting to get the sense this isn't just here, this is tied to the whole of what it is that's going on. The third part, Visions of Paradise, my daughter, Abigail, who's not here tonight, is doing illustration for each one of the Psalms. So that's intended to visually take you into it. My publisher, when I first sent it in, had these little postage stamp-sized pictures like, no, you don't get it. This is the portal. This is where the reader enters into the garden, where something happens there that they can have a sense of, oh, I can go there. So, again, there's no particular words for that, though it's usually there might be some little words to lead you into the garden or to exit out of that part of the garden, but it is the visual because that's one of the senses. Along the garden path, this is envisioning you've got a path that is the psalm, but you're not reading the words. You're being guided along what it is that's happening in the psalm. So the path is a psalm. You're noticing things that are happening, the voices, the people, why that gate is there, why that fountain is there, what are they doing? And so this part is that explanation of the content of the psalm that gives you a sense of, who is God, who are you, what is it that's going on in the psalm. Indwelling the garden. Indwelling the garden is the piece that a few people have mentioned. Back when I wrote in 1988, 99, I wrote in rhymed poetry all 150 Psalms in they're mostly the same style, but I wanted to take the same content of the original text of the Bible, but use words that aren't using any of the original ones, if possible. So the nature of stereo is you have two things. Prop. Stereo works when you have two similar things, one going in each ear. At the same time, they give you that slight difference. There's more than a slight difference maybe in these poems, but some people have said, I understand the biblical text better because I read the poetic part. So it's intended to be a mutually awakening type thing. So they're put into columns. You can read all of the biblical text and all of the poetry as a whole, or I like to go back and forth. It gives you more of the stereo sense of in the moment, getting the stereo that's going on. And again, I'm going to be going through just Psalm 1 and showing all these things as well. Taking reflections with you. There is a tradition that is called Lectio Divina, which is hearing the word. Lectio Divina traditionally has 4 elements to it, and they are deepening levels of listening to the words that are there in a biblical text. I've upgraded those things, and I'll explain them more as I go through, but the thing I've added, I have 6 because there's 4. Numbers 5 and 6. Number 5 is, I want you to stop when the psalm is done and say, what is God saying to you? What do you hear him speak? Part of the whole awakening of the participatory part of this is that the whole of the Bible is supposed to be about a person and not just principles. And so if you can't read this and hear that there's a person there that speaks, then you're probably missing the most important thing. And then the 6th one is, what do you want to say back? We mostly think of prayer as what do we say to God? So in those 5th and 6th, I'm really trying to begin the movement of listening and responding, as though it's a dialogue. Because that's what relationships are all about. And then we have the final embrace. The final embrace, I just sit there and go, what was the flow of the emotion in this psalm? And how can I put few words that, if slowly read, you feel as though you're moving through the emotive sense of what this psalm is trying to say. I see Inger sitting there. She wrote a book once and had these little people who were off the side, and I said, "What's that?" "That's an emotional editor." Oh, what if kids' books had emotional editors to them? And so, in a sense, this last one, it's an emotional editor. It's helping you to feel the emotions of what it is that is being unfolded, opened up in and through this book. So, that is the 7 parts that are in every single one. The biggest challenge for me is when I get to Psalm 119 has 175 verses. And each of the 8 verses that it's broken into begins with the same letter of the Hebrew alphabet. When I did that, I did it with the English for every one of them, 8. X and Z, those were challenging. But that's coming down the way. So those are the perspectives. So now I'm going to do a little bit of we're just going to be looking through a bit of Psalm 1 so you can get a sense of what's going on. Some of you have your books in your hands, some of you do not yet. So Psalm 1 is called pathfinding. Many of you will know the 2 paths in Psalm 1. And at the beginning of each one, I take what is often considered the most well-known of the verses that are within that particular psalm. So blessed is the one whose delight is in the law of the Lord, who meditates on his law day and night. So I have a verse there that is a helping to orient what's going on. So, surveying the garden. So we're just sitting on the porch here. In the midst of all times and places, you have chosen this moment to stand where Jesus stood at the entrance to the Psalms. He stood here as a human, entering into a dialogue with his Father while wrestling with being human. You too are invited to meet with the living God. Jesus still goes with us on this journey as he promised to always be with us. This first psalm guides your journey through the garden and life. You may have gotten out of bed, and in that haze, you are unsure where you're going or what is most important in your life. This psalm encourages reorientation, guiding you to walk wisely with God. Don't forget, you are standing at the welcoming gate. The question for you today is, who will you listen to in order to be fully alive? The answer will shape your life and who you will be. Each day's choices and opportunities shape who you will become in your relationships with God and others, and how you spend your time. Calm your spirit, and listen intently as you approach the psalm, allowing yourself to truly hear the message. Hear him say, I am ready to walk with you. Are you open to this adventure? What is your response? So there you can see where we are on the beginning of a journey. Jesus did, in fact, read the Psalms, spoke the Psalms more than any other book. It was the book that he most referred to. So indeed, we are going with him through this journey because it was his favorite as well. So into the garden with God, I'm just going to read a part of this, starting about halfway down. On this day, on this adventure, what matters is that you go with the Creator God who knows and loves you. When the people of Israel stood ready to enter the promised land, they had to make a choice. And in that respect, you stand with them today, and God speaks to you along with them, saying, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have placed before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. So choose life in order that you may live, you and your descendants, by loving the Lord your God, by obeying his voice, and by holding close to him. Deuteronomy 30, 19 to 20. Hear this invitation, not as a command, but as a call to come home. He is waiting for you in the garden. The gate is unlocked. So again, here we have explored, we've just gone back with the story of Israel waiting at another kind of gate, going into the promised land, and we are invited to live in that space. So the pictures keep going by. Somewhere back 7 slides was the picture of a gate. And through the gate there are 2 paths. And so that image of as you enter in, The nature, that's actually Psalm 7. It looks similar to that. The nature of the two paths is they are the path of wisdom and the path of folly. And so we're invited to begin to learn, what does wisdom look like? And it's more going with a person and a way of walking than it is simply learning principles of walking in any kind of way. So, we are now going to do just a little bit in the garden path, along the garden path. So this is, we've looked around the garden, we've sat on the porch, we looked around the garden, now we're walking in and through the garden. So I'm just reading a little bit of this section. In our ordinary world, we are guided by laws, individual rights, material pursuits, and the quest for self-determination, and all manner of self-improvement coaches, all reinforced by following established rules. In the Psalms, law, which we're supposed to follow the law, refers to the Torah for the Jews and us. This points to the revelation of God to Moses. It's not just about written rules. God calls for a response. The law is not a set of constraints or legislation. It is a story of unconditional love, unreservedly given. However, there are consequences for walking away. One can get lost. And I'll just take you down to the last verse there. As you enter this place, feel the presence of God by your side, embracing you. So I didn't read the whole thing there because I don't want to bore you, and I also want you to buy the book and keep reading. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. So now we assume we have the sense of what the psalm is about. So now we are ready to enter into the garden. So I've got Jonathan and Jasmine who are going to come and help. Jonathan's going to read the traditional form of this, and that will be from the New American Standard. And Jasmine's going to be the poetic response.
She has a better voice than me.
You know what? There's no comparison here. All is gift. Live the gift.
How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers.
Sitting snug in your embrace, the arms that bid me walk in grace, no longer pulled by gripping lies, that life of fear that blurs the eyes.
But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night.
Delight shall be my beacon guide. The Spirit's word blooms from inside. My mind shall rest in hearing true. From dawn to dusk, I will walk with you.
He will be like a tree firmly planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers.
This jostling journey's just begun. I found my home root in the one who grows me like the ripening crop, abundant yield when the harvest's brought.
The wicked are not so, but they are like chaff which the wind drives away.
Gone, oh glad, the days of spoil, that life spilled out like olive oil, the waste of promised left to decay, till days unsavored were whisked away.
Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous.
Missed the days that might have been, leaving memories buried within. Frivolity's fruit is a useless toil, a depleted soul with self-pleasures spoil.
For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
Remind me again, O King of days, to feast on the love that shapes our ways. It is ever tragic to miss your delight, to wander in darkness and miss the light.
Thank you. And so there's a little phrase below that. Reflect for a moment on the experience created as you glance down this psalm as a path. Prepare to be open to what is possible after reading the psalm. Where did it leave you? And so the section, taking reflections with you, again, there's the 6 sections. So the first one is just to ask, what are the words that jumped out of you as we went through it? It may be the words from the original text that just stand out anew, or it may be ones that are part of the poetic rendition of that. As I go on, I do more and more focusing, looking for words that specifically relate to that psalm. So I don't always leave it entirely general, but we're just beginning the journey here. The second of the 6 questions, what does this poem say about God? We often just look for a phrase or something that's about something without thinking about the specifics of the persons involved. So the nature of this book, as I began, I say, you have in your book a book of relational theology. Relationship involves being involved with persons, and so I want to take us to the person with whom that relationship is begun. So looking for what it is saying, when you read through, you start noticing, oh, it says this about God. This is what he's about. Sometimes God is specifically mentioned. Sometimes you hear the intent of God, God's desire, God's will, God's hope. The third, what does the psalm say about you? We often don't recognize what it's saying about us until we stop and say, which path am I walking on? What does it mean for me to walk that path? Am I going to work, or am I going to the grocery store just as a task, or do I see it as part of walking a road where I'm walking with people, where who I am on that path is actually living something that's delighted being in the garden and sharing that with other people? It's amazing today how many people walk into a Starbucks with a cell phone and say nothing to the people sitting around them. They're sitting in the garden looking at their cell phone. But all around them there is blossoming and blooming, and other people who wish that somehow a bit of water and not coffee was thrown at them. You're supposed to laugh at that part. Thank you. Thank you. The fourth part is, what does this psalm say about your relationship with God? Now you may think, well, we already talked about God and we already talked about me. It's like, you're right. We don't notice thinking about relationships. I just finished on Tuesday night a class of 8 weeks dealing with counselors learning to think theologically. Point 1, we are not individuals, we are beings in relationship. And the whole world of psychology is set up for individuals with their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We haven't learned to pay attention to relationships. It's basically everything. It's all about relationships. So the nature of this question is to say, notice the relationship. Where are you in a relationship to this God who is there? What kind of feelings? Do you feel confused? Do you feel encouraged? Do you feel hope? Because that person is there, so to really begin to think, who am I in the context of the relationships that shape my life? The fifth one then, stop and listen what the Lord is saying to you. So you just heard that read. Can you reflect on anything you heard either Jonathan or Jasmine say that you'd say, I could hear God the Father or the Son say something to me as I walked there? Could anybody hear anything? You might have to pull this up right now. Yes?
I felt like God was in the poetic part of it.
Yes.
God was grieving for those the wicked who were missing out. This is all offered in.
Yeah.
There's a sense in the original. It's like the wicked don't get this.
Yep.
But in the interpretation, it sense that God really wanted these people to have this out.
Good. So the one thing I will always try and get people to do in this is begin with it, not God is saying, but he's saying to me, I'm noticing these people. I'm noticing you. I feel this with you. I feel this for you. I'm wondering about what's happening for you. Really let him say it first person to you as a direct address. The fifth part works best if you don't just say, well, he's saying, because now it's just one step removed. To live into the direct address, he is speaking to me, and then to respond to that. And what do you say back to that? You don't have to say anything, but...
What I think back is, I feel his Lord's grief, and I want to live
And the one word you want to change, not I feel his, you want to say, I feel your grief, right? To live in the dialogue, we have to let it be direct address and direct language of response. So that's what, it takes me a while to get people to train to really say, the life of prayer is real persons in real dialogue, listening and responding. And so that's what we want to do. So, let the words roll around in your mind like a new fruit or dessert you have never tasted. The voice in your head is your relational response. You may ask, what voice in my head? It is that very voice asking, what voice in my head? Our task is to let this voice of meditation speak from hearing the voice of Jesus by the Spirit. Learning to listen matters in life and in love. It is the path to the connection that Psalm 1 opens. So now we're at the final embrace. So you've spent this time in the garden, you've heard words, you've experienced the whole of the scripture. The final section here is a poem that I'm attempting to, it's like making good wine. I think we can mention good wine here, can't we? It's like taking all that good juice and squeezing it and getting the emotional sense of what's going on. So Jed's going to come up and read this for us. He's an artist by vision, but I'm also told he's an artist by voice.
I'd say just close your eyes and just listen to the words. Paths, choices, and voices, listening and longing, wanting and waiting. Wanting the hum of you. Resonating with your fullness. Washing out regret. The clean. The smell of hope. Embraced, wanted, willing and weak to wallow or waltz. I glance ahead. I disrobe the past. I am healed at your feast. Your hand, my heart, one step. Not to follow, not to lead, only going with you.
Thanks, Chad. There should be a bit of a calm when you finish reading. There should be something it penetrates beyond just the head. You begin to experience a sense of presence, a sense of there's something deeper going on than even those words could get. It points beyond, as lived into. But it's all invitation. to live, right? This book is an invitation to live, to be in the garden, to blossom and grow. And if you're a tree that brings fruit, to let the fruit do what it should. The Spirit brings fruit. So the nature of this, you can do this by yourself. You can get up in the morning and read this, and I've had a couple of people who have done that. I've had some people who have sat with a group of friends. I have one Young Life person who's worked with a group of leaders, and they said it's just been profoundly rich to work through it with different people taking parts, reading it together. The nature of the sharing of that experience. One family has done it as a family devotion together and had the kids and people do different parts of it. So it invites in different ways for not just an individual to expand their separate experience of relationship, but to really grow into a sense that in all of this, the presence of the God who loves, the God who loves in freedom, who heals, is always at work doing that. And every psalm has its own themes. There are two psalms, Psalm 14 and Psalm 54, that are actually almost identical, but I did one from the perspective of God and the other from the perspective of the human. So even where the words may be very similar, I really try and keep filling out how does this psalm open us up more to this life with God. As Jonathan mentioned, this is the first of 5. The publisher wanted to do 30, 30, 30, 30. They fit on the shelf. They look beautiful. The covers are all different colored, so they'll ultimately make a nice set to them. But the journey is exciting, and in a sense, I've done the poetry. But every time I sit down now for a new psalm, which right now I'm in Psalm 55, it's like the first time. And when I go back and read them again, it's like, oh, did I write that? There is a sense of renewing freshness that I find to the Psalms and to what's happening here. It doesn't lock you into, I have to think or believe that. It actually just keeps opening you up like there's a discovery, like seeing a good friend every time. It's not the same. It's the same friend, and yet it's a new experience. And that is my hope, is what will happen with that. So anyway, I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to take a minute and ask for questions you might have. You may have no questions. You can also give answers or other things like that. I do want to thank Stanwood Foursquare for making this space available, for doing this. Isn't this a pretty awesome kind of space for? So, yep. And my dear wife Cindy, she's my manager and encourager, and one of the people that reads through the texts for me as well. And there are a number of readers that are mentioned in the back who I send this out. I want people to really be reading through. Tell me if this is hitting or not. And I do have people who do that for me. So it's all intended to be tested, tasted, enjoyed, and then shared. So my hope is that tonight has just introduced you, and that it's not just a matter of buying the book, but it's really the idea. There are many commentaries on Psalms, and there are prayers that have been done on the Psalms, but I haven't seen any that really take you into the experience of the Psalms like what's happening here. Jed.
Well, I just have a question. So, a couple questions. One, it says the Psalms, a sanctuary for the soul.
Yes.
And book one. Is the subtitle going to change in each of the ones, or is it always?
It's always going to be that, yep.
And then the second one is, as you're going through and you're reading the poems that you wrote maybe years ago.
It is years ago, yeah.
And you're kind of now approaching it with a fresh eyes. Are there times, I mean, it kind of sounds like there's times where you're like, wow, this is so deep. Are there also times where you're like, I should rewrite this line? I don't know. I'm just wondering if that's the case, or if you feel like they're like really all right, exactly, like they still resonate the same as they did maybe before.
Yeah, and there's a couple of dimensions of that. One is my wife loves the rhythm to be just right. And so we have conversations, you've got too many beats in this line. Or not enough in this one. So it's like, okay, we can deal with that. Because I've just sat there and read through, and I literally have, 2 shelves, about 60 books, because I've just lived in this psalm for a week, when I sit there and look at it and ask the question, does this really reflect it's there? There is seldom a time when I feel like it doesn't. And I did some significant reading back then too. So it's just I'm reading from 1998 to 2026. How many years is that? But it still resonates. I attempted to do academic level reading with artist level creativity. And the person who wrote the foreword to this book, Jeremy Biggie, he's professor at Cambridge and Duke in theology through the arts. He says, no theology of the arts. The arts open up for us things that can't otherwise be done. And the Psalms are a classic in and of themselves. They're the songs of the people. They invite people into this life lived with God. So the nature of the phrasing that's there, I change maybe a couple of words every 100 lines. So most of it is stable. In the one that was read by Jonathan Jasmine, there was maybe one word in that whole poem that I changed. Other questions, thoughts? Brilliant insights.
Well, I really appreciated seeing the poem next to the psalm. It did allow me to think about it in a fresh way. And that was really neat.
Excellent. A number of the people who asked to comment on this, that is the thing that they most go to. One of the people, the commendations, Walter Brueggemann. We don't have probably too many Old Testament scholars. Do we have any Old Testament scholars here? Walter Brueggemann would be considered one of the top 1 or 2 Old Testament scholars in the world in the last 3 decades. He died just a few months ago. But before he died, he wrote a commendation for this. And he he got to read the first 41. He said, I'm happy to read this, and I just want you to know how happy I am what you're doing. This is a real gift for the church. So to get that from him was really good. And another one of the commendations, Jim Houston, he's the one who brought Eugene Peterson to Regent College, and he opened the chair of spiritual theology. So the nature of, what does it look like to really nurture the spiritual life of people. He also wrote a commendation in here, and he also just died just a few weeks ago. So it's not that if you read this book or anything, you're going to start dying. He died at 103. So to say he lived a very full life, and he had me write a number of essays for him. There were 3 sermons he had me write. He didn't quite get. He said, can you write me 3 sermons on participating in the life of the Trinity, which I sent him about 3 years ago. His health, he's been okay, but when you're 103, I guess you slow down. I don't know. But I asked his daughter, I said, so Claire, where are those sermons? And were there other ways? Yep, he had 14 people. Would you mind sending those to me? I want to see if down the road I can't get those published. So I want to keep his work going as well, because that's what I think community does. So I'm hoping that in this place and wherever you go, that whatever you do with this book, that it facilitates your relationships and community with those who are dear to you, but most of all, to the living God who goes with you. So we do have some more edibles out there and drinkables, and I would be happy to sign books if people would like. Unless you have anything else to say. Going. Here we go. Okay. Thank you so much for being here.